Fallout 4 was the entry that shook a lot of stuff up, introduced new features, brought changes that no one really asked for, and established a new direction for the series, such as a voice protagonist, a change in the character build management, and other unexpected features. How did the changes affect the game? Let's discuss Fallout 4. The initial plans for Fallout 4 came when, in 2009, Codsworth decided he wanted to explore the Fallout world prior to the bombs dropping. Of course, this was well before Skyrim was released, so that took priority. But once it was completely finished, Fallout 4 entered full production. The biggest benefit the game had was the use of the modified creation engine rather than Gamebryo. Despite the popular opinion, as creation engine is based off of Gamebryo, the new engine does affect performance and allows graphical improvements, such as wet surface area and more dynamic lighting. Fallout 4 was released November 10th, 2015. At first glance, one may see Fallout 4 gameplay being rather similar to Fallout 3's or New Vegas's, but it does run a bit differently. Fallout 4 dropped the skill system in exchange for a focus on special and perks. Some things that were once skills, like science, were rolled over to a perk tier system. In a way, it's kind of amusing since the number of Fallout 3's perks just gave more skill points anyways. It kinda cuts out the middleman in that sense. It works, but it doesn't feel as fulfilling, and personally, I prefer interesting perks rather than ones that help me pick stronger locks. I would prefer to let skill points do that. Gunplay is a definite improvement. It feels rather fulfilling, which is good because you'll be doing a lot of fighting. A lot of fighting. A lot of fighting. Like, you'll leave one block of super mutants just to run into gunners and then run into raiders. It has a way of getting tiring rather quickly. Though at least the super mutants and deathclaws have damage resistance, so that's a welcome change from Fallout 3. Fallout 4 really does go out of the way to make combat a focal point in comparison to enjoying some basic RPG elements. Yes, you do talk to many NPCs, but it doesn't feel like it has the same dynamic choice system with speech checks as the older games did. The speed checks that do exist are a give me more money or give me more information option with little effect on the game. The biggest, much more widely accepted change, however, was the way that power armor handles. It does feel pretty good. There's a lot of joy in getting to a massive tanky suit and just tearing things to shred, though it does come at the cost of making power armor feel a lot less special as it once did. Getting a set 15 minutes into the game kinda rubs me the wrong way, but still, it feels good, mechanically speaking. The change to the crafting system is a welcome change too, crafting weapon armors and chems and settlements. The first three being much more beneficial than the last one, but I'll get into more of that later. And hey, at least on PC, Fallout 4 runs pretty well. But if you have a beefy rig with long load times, you may want to throw in a faster loading mod into it, because it's an absolutely aggravating issue without it. And level scaling is back in full force. So much so there's a crap ton of Deathclaw variants just waiting for you to hit a specific level. I know, I'm a broken record at this point. Fallout 4 is a surprisingly more hopeful take on the wasteland in comparison to Fallout 3. It's not as dark, but it does try to emphasize an uncertainty to it. A lot of this is due to the synth storyline, and those couple interactions where paranoia is a really big deal. But perhaps it's rather hard to get a flavor of the wasteland when there's only about 3 or 4 real settlements in the entire game. Diamond City, Good Neighbor, and Vault 81, as well as the Institute, I suppose, which I guess there's at least a cohesive feeling between Diamond City and Good Neighbor, but it'd be pretty hard to break it with so few options. Everything else is a player-made settlement. This is a feature that many people enjoy, but man, personally, I wasn't really about it. I felt like it came to the cost of NPC towns, causing the whole Commonwealth to feel very lifeless. I never cared about the settlement building system, and honestly just throw down a lot of beds in a warehouse and call it a day. Then I go build my own private base and move on. Personally, I would have preferred base building over settlement building, but I know that others will disagree. Fallout 4's background music is, once again, rather forgettable to me, but its radio music is nice. It expands on what Fallout 3 introduced, but this is where you start to notice how often it repeats itself too. You turn on a Bethesda Fallout radio and you can expect to hear Butcher Pete. Not saying it's bad, it's just repetitive. Though perhaps this makes me a little hypocritical as I really enjoy the classic ambient music and encourage future Fallout titles to use it. Sticking to the subject of audio, I have to say I'm very much surprised that the feelings of same voice syndrome that plagued Fallout 3 and New Vegas seems to not really be an issue in Fallout 4. At the very least, I haven't noticed it. Most of the voice acting in Fallout 4 is actually pretty decent. I generally have no complaints, but I also really don't feel that anywhere stand out either, which is pretty wild given the voice listing contains the likes of Jim Cummings and Sean Shamel.
Human and strong fight together, share together. Human and strong, one.
With audio out of the way, there's something that I can't help but really enjoy aesthetically about Fallout 4. I can't put my fingers on it. Perhaps it's the bulky power armor that feels so classic inspired. Maybe there's just something about the Pip-Boy having a nice subtle animation. I'm not sure, but there's a welcoming feeling I get from Fallout 4 that's just comfortable. It feels like a bit of love and care went into it. As for the story of Fallout 4, it's not really as well done as past titles. On the surface, it's not such a bad idea. A lot of talks about xenophobia, paranoia, and the concept of human rights, but it doesn't really hold up very well. A lot of this is due to the constant feeling of half-baked ideas, like Kellogg taking over Nick's body for all of 5 seconds and then nothing.
Hope you got what you were looking for inside my head. I was right. I should have killed you when you were on ice.
Synth paranoia and people telling us that body swap sins are dangerous without ever really showing such examples play out. I mean, even the very intro of the game tells you that the pre-war world is in chaos, but then they show you a picture-perfect happy family of the protagonists.
The entire world unraveled. Peace became a distant memory. It is now the year 2077. We stand on the brink of total war. And I am afraid. For myself. For my wife. For my infant son.
Listen, after breakfast, I was thinking we could head to the park for a bit. Weather should hold up.
It feels like a lot of say one thing, show another. And then there's a bit of underdevelopment with the Institute itself. I'm still not really sure what their goal really is other than make sense. I've heard a number of conflicting theories to their goals, but no real conclusion. I don't know. The main story itself feels pretty weak, though I do love how Fallout 4 adopted the 4-way faction system from New Vegas. You'll find a lot of people complaining about Fallout 4 Online, but despite that, it holds a much higher ranking than New Vegas, which is the second highest count of players as far as Fallout titles go, at least according to Steam. About 4 times as many players. Now, again, that's limited to just Steam, and honestly 3 in New Vegas do not run very well on modern PCs, but still it's fairly impressive. That being said, I do feel a number of complaints are valid. For instance, some people dislike the voice protagonist. Personally, I got used to it, but I could take it or leave it. If it does go, I like to keep the cinematic dialogue at least. I feel some people classify Fallout 4 as lazy, and I disagree. I feel there's an honest amount of love and care that went into it. That doesn't mean they didn't experiment and it had varying degrees of success. And, much to their credit, they took complaints people had about the Lions Brotherhood chapter and went in the opposite direction. I feel like Fallout 4 was an honest attempt to make corrections from Fallout 3 and build upon the success they saw from New Vegas. It just all didn't work out as well as they probably hoped. It's still a fun game though, and there's a lot of reasons why it's still one of the most played games on Steam. If you never played Fallout 4 and you were to ask me if it's worth playing, well, the combat can be fun, power armor feels incredible, and settlement building is a task enjoyed by a lot. But if you really care about choices and want more old school Fallout feel, then it can be a bit tough. Still, Fallout 4 is pretty old at this point, having been out since late 2015, so you can get it pretty cheap. If nothing else, it's worth a sell price. At the time of this recording, you can get the Gaming Year Edition at 75% off for $10 on Steam until October 26, 2021. And I will say yes, it's definitely worth it at that price.
But everything we do, no matter how hard, we do it for our family. Now, say goodbye, Sean. Bye-bye. Say bye-bye. Come on. Bye, honey. We love you.